Hello summoners, this is Angus Caesar with episode 2 of Playing Perfectly. This episode we're going over roles and
30 seconds
practice.
until minions
So for
spawn.
practice, actually I'll be having this play in the background while I go over a few points. So practice, so why do we practice? We practice to get better, we practice our habits, practice our mechanics, and this is all to refine our skills in League of Legends. Personally,
Minions
I
have
prefer to
spawned.
practice actively rather than passively or inactively, which means I'd rather practice in game. If I want to learn how to ward jump, if I want to learn how to flash over walls, I do it in game. Now, this does mean that there is going to be a margin of error. You're not going to always be able to flash over walls. You're not going to be able to always pull off the things you want to, but that's why we practice. And so I do this in normal games. I keep on trying it in every single game. I have something in mind that I want to try. Maybe I want to try 2v1. Maybe I want to try play a 2v1 and get a double kill. Maybe I want to try double bruiser bottom. Maybe I want to try flashing over walls or 100 zeroing somebody for a different champion. But failures to be expected. But we don't want to do this in ranked games, and that's because we don't want to make mistakes. So we don't want to push ourselves in ranked games to do something we're not familiar with, unless we absolutely have to. But most preferably, we don't. So we want to do things habitually, which means you want to check items, you want to take timers, you want to relay information. So we want to create certain habits that are good for us. So for example, we want to check our opponent's items every so often. We want to keep on pressing that tab button because we want to know what items they have, and it's a good habit to practice. Now, this is a good habit. This habit is applicable in ranked games, and it's also very useful in normal games as well. And so is relaying information. So I know that a lot of players in normal games, we don't really tell our junglers when flashes are down or when certain things are coming up, but there's no excuse for this in ranked games. Communication is very important, and it's pretty much required because everyone wants to win the game. These kind of things are kind of necessary. So relaying information is definitely a habit that we all need to practice. And so now I'll be going over roles. And so for this part, I'll be pausing it here and I'll be analyzing roles. So importance of roles. Every lane's goal is to win, but why? Winning a lane doesn't just mean killing your enemy laner, it means creating pressure. So that brings our question to, what is pressure? Pressure is presence, saying I'm here, I'm doing this, and I'm doing something that'll help me win the game. And it's the opponent's job, or what they should be doing, is reacting to you, reacting to what you're doing, trying to stop you from winning the game. So for example, lanes are to create pressure, and that pressure is supposed to draw the jungler there. And what's the point of that? What is the point of drawing the jungler to your lane? Well, the point of putting pressure is to get your enemy's attention, bring pressure to you, but not die. So for example, top lane. Top lane is really far from everything else. You want to bring pressure here. You want to be able to kill the other top laner and make him a liability for his team. But you don't want to die. So that's a really good example, as when a jungler comes top, tries to gank you, but you know he's coming, you don't die from his gank. Your teammates have an advantage here because it's 3v4, possibly 3v4, and they can take a dragon easily. So that's why we add pressure, to relieve pressure from our other lanes. But the point of pressure is to not die when they react to your pressure. Now I'll be going over some roles, and I'll be going over what these roles do, and in order of the most difficult to least difficult, and why. So I believe that jungle is the most difficult, but also the most influential role in the game. But why? So junglers create the most pressure due to their unpredictability and the monster's objective, control, buffs, dragon, etc. This is the most difficult role because it requires use of many skills. It requires awareness, judgment, and objective control. So what do I mean by awareness, judgment, and objective control? So as a jungler, so let's say for example their jungler is Lee Sin. He has to have the awareness of where is the enemy laner, what items does he have, does he have a ward, are his summoners up, can I kill him, what summoners does my laner have, can my laner assist me in killing him, which lane should I gank, when should I gank this lane, how should I gank this lane. Those are kinds of judgment calls that you need to make as a jungler. And the more of these things that you have to do, the more difficult I believe a role is. So I believe that jungling is the most difficult role due to these things. You also have to control your objectives. So for example, you have to control your red buff, you have to control your blue buff, you have to know when it's coming up, what side of the map you should be on, and when. You have to be aware that the enemy can take dragon and at what time, and because of what. So for example, if Lee Sin comes top to gank me, but I don't die from it, if my jungle Riven is at bottom, I can let them know that Lee Sin's top, they can get a dragon for free, or relatively easy. But jungling is so difficult. You have to account for so many people. You have to account for your laner, the enemy laner, and all their summoners. Why play jungler? Well, it's the most rewarding role, and you can make the most plays, you can lead the team, and in general kind of be a badass and just do crazy things. And our next role is a support role. Support and AD carry are kind of tied because they're equally as difficult. So why is that? Well, support role requires a lot of communication, requires a lot of teamwork, but so does the AD carry role. AD carry needs to bring the presence in the late game, but the support brings all the presence into the early game. And so this is support's job to make life easy for AD carry and to make effective use of his gold, buy items to help his AD carry, defend them, and so forth. Get wards, vision, things like that. You're also the anti-playmaker, so it's your job to counter enemy plays when it happens. So for example, if Lee Sin comes to gank, he's trying to make a play, you have wards out. Or if Lee Sin's trying to gank, you're tagged, you stun him. So you're kind of like an anti-playmaker. And you're also a safety net of the teams, because when someone does something like make a mistake or they get caught, you can say you have the utility in your spells to save them. And that's what's important. But an AD carry requires strong use of mechanics, positioning, threat awareness, and has to be the late game. So there's pressure on AD carry as well. The AD carry has to farm, has to perform well, not die, not get pooped on, so that they can so if the late game comes, they can be a really huge presence. But they also have to be really aware of threats in the game. So for example, Renekton. You'll see later that Renekton's going to jump by Caitlyn a lot. Caitlyn recognizes these threats and she has to, or else she'll die and the team will lose the game because we don't have an AD carry. And so there's that kind of pressure. And next we'll go into mid lane and top lane. Generally mid lane and top lane are the same in difficulty because mid lane, in addition to pressure, you have threat pressure and team fights and in ganks. So I believe mid lane's a little bit above the top lane because they make a little more plays than top laners do in general. So as you can see earlier, Zed, he's roamed, he's come ganked, and he's actually gotten a couple kills. So he's putting kill pressure, he's putting threat pressure, and things like that. So really good on Zed for being able to do that. And you're in the middle of the map. You have positioning to be able to go top, bottom, and top. So those are the kind of things you should be doing because you have the best positioning. Next to jungle, of course. And so you also can add pressure to mid lane. And what's the importance of putting pressure mid lane? Well, mid lane is the quickest way to nexus. And so if mid lane towers go down, then that just means that it's that much easier for the nexus to go down. And then we'll go on to moving to top lane. So top lane, it's probably pretty difficult in its own respect, but so are all these roles. Top lane has a lot of danger pressure because you're far from everyone else, and the lane is very snowbally, and it has high risk but high reward. So what I mean by that is what I discussed earlier. It's high risk but high reward. If you lose top lane, and there aren't many resources top lane that can help you get back in the game, but if you're winning top lane, that just means that the enemy top lane is just having just as difficult time as you would be. So for example, if you put a lot of pressure top lane, you're killing the top laner a lot, you're taking their top tower, that just means that their jungle has to come in and help them. But when they come top, they leave dragon open. And when dragon open, it's a global objective that your team can take and gives you the advantage. So if their jungler comes up top, you don't die from them, that just means that your team can get a dragon and you've done your job. So you create a sort of passive pressure on dragon. So top lane's job is kind of to attract the jungler's attention, or I believe it's to attract the jungler's attention and not die. And you relieve a lot of pressure from mid and top. I mean from mid and bottom. So if you bring the jungler top, mid is free to roam bottom or free to help for dragon. Mid is free to push their mid tower, and bottom is free to play aggressive. So there's you kind of relieve pressure by bringing jungler top. But the purpose is not to die. Dying can be okay, but not ideal. If the team can react to the enemy presence at top, then it's okay. And that is all for my episode about roles, and I'll be having consecutive episodes about each role in itself. I'll be playing a ranked game, preferably, if possible, about each role, and I'll be showing them and the kind of pressures and difficulties that they display. Thank you.